Okay, so Injustice in America sits. The last part of the class before I summarize everything and talk about some possible reforms that might make things different or better is called failing criminal justice policies. Now, policy is a rule or set of laws that's made by policymakers or lawmakers. And what I argue in my teaching and research is that the death penalty and the drug war are failing policies. Now, that doesn't mean they're wrong, doesn't mean you can't support them morally. It means that the way we do them doesn't work. So, what does that mean? It means two things. Now, there are some notes about this on your As You Learn page. So you'll see that there. You'll also see links to articles I've actually written, one on the drug war and the other on the death penalty, using what's called justice theory, which is something else I teach at the university honors level. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath. I've been doing a workout here too. I apologize. Trying to make the most of the day. So anyway, you'll see articles about both of those that you can read if you're interested in this topic. You'll also see a video I made about the death penalty in North Carolina, along with a link to a report that I wrote for the legislature about the death penalty in our state. And then you'll see a PowerPoint presentation about the drug war, showing you some of the actual data on the stuff I'm talking about. Now look, you're not going to have a lot of questions about this on your final exam. But if you really want to understand it, if you want to know these topics, that's where you can find information. And I would say, download them and read at your convenience. Watch the video if you want to. It's interesting. You'll learn something about North Carolina, the death penalty. So save them for future classes, sources to use on papers and that sort of thing. Okay. Now, here is the argument. These policies, the death penalty and the drug war, fail because when we evaluate a policy of government, the first thing we look to see is, does it meet its goals? Now, the drug war has stated goals by the U.S. government, by the Office of National Drug Control Policy inside the White House, okay? ONDCP, the Office of National Drug Control Policy. So we know what the drug war is for. And they not only tell us what it's for, they tell us what data sources to use to evaluate it, and they make those data sources available. So we just look at the data, okay? The death penalty doesn't have stated goals, but we have some assumed goals, okay? What I show you in the research, in the articles, is that the death penalty does not meet its assumed goals, and the drug war doesn't meet its stated goals, okay? So by that definition, these are failed policies. Now, even if they met their goals, they also have to provide, the second way we evaluate policy is the policies have to provide more benefits than they do costs. So they do a cost-benefit analysis, like weighing, okay? And if a policy meets its goals and has more benefits than costs, or if the benefits way more, they're more valued, then we call it a successful policy. But when it comes to the death penalty and drug war, both of those policies fail that criteria as well. So they both fail to meet their goals, and they both impose significant costs. So here, let me give you some examples. The assumed goals of the death penalty are, number one, to provide retribution for victims, their families, to make them feel better, to achieve justice for murder victims. That's number one. Number two, we want to incapacitate the offender. So the ultimate form of incapacitation is to kill the murderer. So their freedom is taken away and they can never commit murder again. Number three, we want to deter future murderers, would-be murderers, make them afraid so they won't do it. So we have a goal related to justice, retribution. We have two goals related to reducing crime, incapacitation and deterrence. The death penalty fails all of those. And the main reason why is because it's so rare. We don't use it enough. Now, logically, you'd say, well, we just need to use it more, and we'll get more retribution, more incapacitation, more deterrence. Absolutely. But we won't, and we can't, we never will. And if you study the death penalty, you'll see why. First of all, not every state has a death penalty. Those who do, the vast majority of them never use it. Only about 10 states have averaged one execution a year since the 1970s. Only one state, Texas, has averaged more than 10. the death penalty executions are freakishly rare compared to murder. And for something to provide justice for victims, to reduce murder by killing murderers, incapacitation, and to deter, to make you afraid, we have to actually use it, and we just don't. About 2% of people in death penalty states are sentenced to death. The vast majority of those will never be executed. Far less than 1% of those total ever get executed. Now, when you understand why it's so rare, then you realize it's not something we can fix. Prosecutors have to seek the death penalty. Juries have to convict and recommend a death sentence. The judge has to impose the death sentence. The death sentence has to be upheld on appeal, etc. And these things just don't happen. Now, so we don't achieve our goals. And then when you look at the costs, it costs 2 to 5 times more expensive to keep someone to execute someone than it does to keep them in prison. We have significant racial disparities, particularly with the race of victims. So if you want to see race of victim bias, watch the video. We basically kill people who kill white victims. That's what it's reserved for. And so these are the kinds of things that suggest the costs outweigh the benefits. And then, of course, we have evidence that not only have innocent people been convicted in sentenced to death, but we've actually executed some. If you don't believe that, go to the Death Penalty Information Center website and click on innocence, and you'll see actual cases of people who've been executed in spite of clear evidence of their innocence or lack of evidence of their guilt. Okay. With the drug war, we have stated goals. The drug war is meant to reduce availability of drugs in the country, reduce drug use and drug abuse, reduce the health and social costs of drug abuse. This is how much we spend, how much money we lose from drug abuse, the number of dead people, the number of sick people. We try to make that go down. And also, we want to reduce crime related to drugs. These are some of the stated goals over the years. And if you look at the actual data I present, we just fail. We're like, I don't know, if you pick a sports team, I don't know, we're like the Cleveland Browns, I don't know, pick a team, a really bad team in any sport. That's what our record would be. Drugs are still widely available. Drug use has not declined significantly, especially since the 1990s. The number of people who get sick and die from drugs goes up every single year, has not gone down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As you saw in the last presentation, we spent a lot of money incarcerating drug offenders. So, 20% of our budget or so on corrections is just to drug offenders. We lose a lot of money. Then there's the same racial disparities we've talked about that you've already heard about and that are documented in Chapter 6. Significant racial disparities in the drug war. Okay, these are all costs. We're breaking up families in certain communities by arresting all the men there who are involved in the drug trade. And obviously that poses an impact on the children in those communities who are being raised without dads. It just goes on and on and on. So by either standard of policy evaluation, these policies don't meet their goals and the costs outweigh the benefits. Now, that doesn't mean we should end the death penalty, and it doesn't mean we should end the drug war. It probably does. But other people say we just need to keep working to make it more effective or what have you. Well, I would just say we've been trying that for 40 years, and we have not been successful at tweaking it or making it better to eliminate these things. So I would propose alternatives. Now, that's a little bit later in the class, the last unit. I would actually personally advocate for abolishing the death penalty and replacing it with a tougher punishment, which is life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. It's far worse to spend your life in prison forever than it is to be dead, honestly. But you may disagree, of course. And then I would replace the drug war with a medical model, treating drug abuse as a serious problem, medical problem, where people can get help and drug treatment works. And using non-criminal things or mechanisms to deal with drug use. Most drug use is normal, people don't have problems, and if they're not hurting anybody else, a libertarian would say, leave them be, right? They have the liberty to put in their body what they want. Look, if you can smoke a cigarette, why can't you smoke a joint? Please explain that to me. Send me an email, let me know. If you can eat a Big Mac or a Monster Thick Burger, why can't you smoke heroin? I'm not saying you should. You shouldn't put that stuff in your body. But if it's meant to prevent harm, we're focusing on the wrong things. The foods we eat are way more dangerous. Tobacco is way more dangerous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even alcohol as a brewer, way more damaging than all illicit drugs combined. Food for thought, right? All right, so check out the PowerPoint slideshows, the notes online, and watch the video if you're interested. And if you have any questions about the death penalty or the drug war, let me know. Now, I also teach classes on these, so these will be offered periodically in your career if you're around. And I've written a book on both of these. If you're interested in that, I can let you know about those. And of course, the articles. So there's a lot more information available to you guys. All right. Next week, we will deal with the future of criminal justice, summarize the class, and then talk about potential changes to make things better. All right. Peace.